Well, moving on now, we've got Mr. Olajide Odioye, who is the General Manager of LASTMA. He joins us right here in our studios. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the program.
Good morning, Chamberlain.
Well, when this particular video, I think it was your man who recorded it anyway, I suppose, because I see them record time and again. Was it from your team?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Incidentally, I was also at that particular spot for about an hour.
Oh.
Earlier on in the day before the team stayed back just to ensure the one-way going on that
So
bridge.
tell us, what happened in this scenario?
Well, what it is, if you understand the trip from the international airport, Murtala Mohammed Airport, going towards Oshodi and Ilupeju, you would have to fly over the bridge to link up with the Apapa Oshodi Express Road. And so from the fire that happened a few weeks ago that stopped the route from those coming from the express from the Isolo side, going towards the airport, so that bridge is closed for repairs because of the fire incidents. And so what has happened now is like motorists, in trying to avoid having to go all the way to Antony Interchange to come back on themselves to go to the airport, they decide to make immediate left against traffic on the bridge. And that is that section of the bridge coming down, facing traffic coming from the airport. And so this guy, like very many other motorists that have been doing that in the past few weeks, had come down as soon as he's seen the enforcement officers preventing that one-way violation. Instead of now coming out and talking to them, and it could be educated, made aware, or it could be arrested depending on what's going on then, he now decided like he was going to make an immediate reverse and find a way to escape, which is very typical of most drivers in Lagos who violate traffic rules. And so in doing so, the police officer attached to LASTMA, standing behind him to capture what is going on, unfortunately got trapped from the reverse mode that the guy engaged himself in, and he threw him over the bridge. And we thank God that not maybe the training of the police saved this police officer that's involved in this incident. He landed on his arm, which is now seriously broken. We thank God that he did not land on his head because the canal below is concrete-based. Although it has water, he could have just landed anywhere else, and that would have been the end of his life.
Well, is he alive at the moment?
He is very much alive. In fact, he's been discharged from the hospital with a broken arm, so he's opted like he needs to seek more local intervention to reset his bones.
Wow. Well, if you look at some of these scenarios, I mean, just as you said, that this happens on a regular basis. Could it be that even when they are approached nicely, they still do this and endanger the lives of everybody who's there?
There's nothing called, I mean, the offender, especially the willful offender, would always decide to escape from being caught. And that is the truth of the matter. In fact, this incident is really nothing to someone like me. It's something that I witness every single day. Wow. It happened to me last year. And in fact, it happened to my PA about 3 weeks ago. And the same thing happened. We caught a lady in Magodo doing a reverse, going one way. We stopped her just to talk to her like, you can't do that. Out of desperation, she put a car in reverse and everything. She was going to run me over. And then, because I stepped aside, she put a car in reverse and ran over my PA's legs. Whoa. He's going to hospital every single day right now. I don't even have someone working with me. But this is what we face daily. If you see a downfall driver or yellow bus operator, and you see him facing traffic on Ikorodu Road with 3 lanes and everything, just know he has done something. He's trying, officers are trying to apprehend him to stop him from misbehaving. He's decided he's going to endanger the lives of his passengers, and he will do anything to escape. That's just typical.
Well, you know, we'll talk about that part in a bit. Your job and the job of all those officials across the country who are in traffic is not easy. I mean, I know being in the country is not exactly easy as well, because you need to survive a lot of things. But you know, there are cases where you're on the road and there's no indication, there are no signs whatsoever that this is one way. And you know, people just, I mean, I don't know what percentage, But that has happened once or twice, maybe more than once or twice. So what is being done to ensure that those kind of scenarios don't exist? Because I know, when initially the LASTMA started, there was that narrative that, when innocent people just unconsciously or mistakenly go through one way, rather than the officials to be there to say, no, don't go through this route, this is against traffic. They wait for you to get in, then they pounce on you. How do you respond to that?
Chamberlain, you're quite right, but the story has about a few legs. Typically speaking, if someone knows they're violating willfully, they are ready with the stories. And more than likely, they are aware and they would lie when they're being caught. And then generally, there are those who are not aware, and the absence of traffic signs to say this is one way or banned turns, that can confuse a few motorists. I totally agree with you. And the government also needs to step up its responsibility to make sure that there are no ambiguity in terms of understanding the road use at any time. However, having said that, another leg of it is that those who willfully wish to disobey traffic signs will go in the middle of the night to go and remove those signs.
What?
And when they are caught, they will come out and say, well, I didn't see the sign. There's so many things going on in our environment.
Wait. That happens?
Oh, of course, absolutely. Oh, that happens all the time, all the time.
Say.
So sometimes you just think, how many more signs do you have to pay for? Although that's a responsibility, but they will go and remove the signs so that they can prove I wasn't aware that the government did not do this. It happens all the time.
Okay, wow. That's a bit mind-boggling, just imagining the extent of that. But, I mean, two issues for me. Watching that video, I believe you've seen that video time and again, there must have been some lessons for you and your men in your everyday conduct because, I mean, thankfully, the policeman is alive. I mean, some say it could have been worse, like you said. It could have been much worse. And, I mean, LASTMA trended on Twitter yesterday with a lot of people weighing in on what they saw, how this could have been done better. What about technology? How about you have just smart cameras to capture the plate numbers and all that? Different suggestions. But what lesson really did LASTMA glean from this, such that moving forward, maybe things could have been done in a different way such that the lives of your men and women will not be put at risk?
Well, I'm glad you said that. Of course, the technology is the way to go. Our governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, it's very, very on top of that. He approved the deployment of technology for us to improve our communication last year to 2020. This year, we're definitely open in the next few weeks to start what you would say non-approachable offense dealings. That means we're going to be having body cameras and officers to capture incidences because things happen so fast and you don't really have time to say, okay, let me get my camera out and everything. But if you have your body camera on that is recording, then you can capture all sorts of different things that you can use against typical offenders.
Some officials are the guilty party.
Well, if you're having a body camera, so if you're talking to someone and you switch your camera off, that is an alarm bell. That's something you're doing something that you needed to hide, and we do investigate and we sort ourselves out.
Okay, you had mentioned in passing the yellow buses.
Yeah.
So what is being done about that? Because they can be reckless, I tell you.
Well, what is being done by the government is to improve steadily according to the first agenda of Governor Sanwo-Olu's theme agenda. The number one project there is traffic management and transportation improvement. Buses, as you would perhaps have noticed, more buses have been put into the system. A lot of bus terminals are being built. A lot of labours are being built. So you're gradually going into a system where a lot of motorists may decide not to use their own private cars and rely on the unregulated bus system. The yellow buses at the moment are not regulated. But steadily, from what I understand, is that we're going to find a way to phase out the yellow buses and the kekemawas as a means of public transportation in Lagos. Because really, the reason why I feel, or that I understand the way they behave right now, is because it's a private entity. and anyone can just buy a bus, demand 10,000 naira a day in returns. The bus driver is under pressure. He misbehaves because he's competing with about 75,000 other bus operators, and he needs to make the 10,000, make enough for himself, pay for his union dues, pay whoever he needs to pay, maintain the vehicle, and that is serious pressure on a daily basis. And that's why they behave the way they behave. It is not acceptable, but we're where we are. But once Governor Sanwo-Olu kicks in and everything else in terms of like alternative mode of transport, public transport, that is the rail system, and the water system, water transportation, improve on that, a lot of people would see improvement on the mobility and transportation issues in Lagos State.
Well, perhaps this question may sound somewhat, but perhaps one way to look at it would be to prevent rather than to fight it, so to speak. Lagos is always going to have traffic because of its small size and big population. So could it be, because there are perspectives that some people will be taking and saying, perhaps it's because the law, people are trying to avoid the law, avoid being arrested because the laws, the repercussions of breaking the laws are so draconian. What do you make of that?
Well, you can look at that in two ways. For what we are or what we can be in our own particular environment. If the consequences is affordable, then a lot more people can choose to offend. And the other end of the spectrum, if it's too expensive, then some people will do everything to escape being punished. And so some kind of balance needs to be struck. But policy-wise, where the government is going is that the way we drive in Lagos or the way we drive generally in Nigeria is not an acceptable norm because we endanger other road users who are also vulnerable. You see, the car, in a way, is a weapon, and a lot of drivers use the vehicle as a weapon to injure others who do not have a car. And so that attitude and behavior of superiority over a public space needs to change. If we change our attitudes and the numbers come down in terms of like incidences and serious injuries and deaths on the road, surely our leaders, the national, the Assembly, Lagos State House of Assembly members will look at it and say, okay, maybe this is time to relax the punitive measures that is already in place.
Well, clearly, something needs to change and change fast.
Surely,
but speaking about,
I totally agree with that.
Speaking about punishment now, I mean, the driver, we hear he's been arrested and all. What's his fate now?
Well, the fate is according to what the law says. I mean, from what has happened, from what you've seen in the video, he may not have willfully wanted to kill someone or injure someone. All he wanted to do was to escape. But in so doing, he has to be responsible for his actions. I didn't change the gear for him. You didn't change the gear. He put the gear in reverse when officers are around him. He didn't care about the safety of anybody else around him. He was just thinking about himself, and that's a willful action. And his fate remains according to the law. That what has happened could have been a murder, but right now that's going to be attempted murder.
Has it been charged to court?
Absolutely, yes, been charged. So it's going to be charged on two fronts. So it's going to be charged by LASTMA system on the issue of violating one-way system. And then the police who are responsible for criminal matters will certainly be looking to charge him for attempted murder. Doesn't matter because he's an officer or not. What has happened that we're seeing in front of us is attempted murder. And the warning needs to be struck and for people to understand that, listen, if you've done something wrong, whether it is deliberate or not, if you're being caught, the best thing is just relax yourself, find a way, what's going to be the consequences, not be looking to kill anyone.
When you talk about relaxing yourself, that can be a little challenging. For instance, well, first of all, we've seen some of your men, incidentally, the police too, who, when perhaps there's an incident on the road, they listen to you, they're cordial when they do that. But there's a very huge percentage who are just there for revenue and don't care, and they are very,
aggressive.
They could be very aggressive and very hard and ill-trained. What are you doing about those?
I buy into what you've just said. It's something that happens all the time. But when it happens, we investigate. I've come to your station and I've repeated over the time that unfortunately, we're in this environment as it is. There's so many reasons and angles where you can begin to determine how did we get here. But we are who we are sometimes, and some of us are just bad elements, and some of us do not know how to change to be better citizens. Even when you're wearing uniform, you're representing the government. That is the truth. But the point remains. The point remains, LASTMA as an agency has over 4,000 officers. The majority, and I'm talking about serious majority here, are serious professionals, down to heart. But doesn't mean I'm going to make an excuse for the few percentage that are giving the government and the agency a bad name. But my advice to our listeners and viewers is that just try your best not to violate. It's as simple as that. You reduce the percentage and the chances of any officer trying to molest or extort anything from you. Just do your best. If you do not have a driver's license, don't get on the road. If you don't know how to use the roads in Lagos, just stay at home and use BRT or call Uber. It's not a must that everybody must drive. A lot of people who are on the road right now driving don't have a right to be there. They don't have any moral grounds to be driving, be behind the wheel. And that is the truth, because they have not been trained properly. They've gotten the license through the back door. And so this conflict is likely to continue as long as we have motorists who are violating every single day. And so you have enforcement officers out of pressure, out of frustration. I give you an example, Chamberlain, right? Try go to any one of our bus stops. A LASTMA officer is not empowered to chase passengers from the road to go into the bus stop. Because even when you tell them, and I tell them all the time, they're not going to listen to you. They're looking to confront with you and abuse you. So a LASTMA officer is just going to think, you know what, I don't have time for these ones. I'm going to chase the downfall drivers. But then, who is creating the avenue for the downfall driver to be picking up passengers on the road when the passengers themselves are creating the instances? So it's a double jeopardy, and the pressure is high.
Okay, there are some issues which we unfortunately can't address, because when people are arrested, they think that the mobile courts don't just give them any fair hearing when cars are impounded, cars are sold, and all of those kind of challenges, which perhaps we'll try and see if we can sort that at a later date. But if you can, in less than 30 seconds, what is the situation with the closure of the Third Mainland Bridge? Well,
the situation right now is tidying up is going on right now. Final road markings will be put on the areas where they've walked upon. That's why it's going to be closed for 24 hours to make sure that everything is set up for us to start enjoying the bridge from 12 midnight on Saturday. And so we're back to normal. But I must warn, a lot of roads are penned down for construction. Wow. The Faloma Bridge is there. It's one of those. And they have Bonicam. So there are lots of things going on. So it would be nice for your viewers to understand that it's an ongoing process to make sure that we have the roads that we deserve, and so that our vehicles do not end up in the garage because the roads are bad.
No pain, no gain, they say.
That's correct, sir.
We do thank you for your time, and well done. And as you continue to strengthen and smoothen everywhere else, thank you for coming on, and all the best.
Thank you for having me.